Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Dave Lees.
And I'm Jonathan Byer.
Hi. And today we are having my
I'm Glencora Davis.
Yes. So Glencora is a musician like Jonathan, but she also was a figure skater in the Muncie era of glory of the early 90s, mid 90s. And she trained with Anessa, who is maybe the snobbiest of all ice dance technicians. She was the mastermind behind all of Dubova's teams in the Klimova, Grishuk, and Usova era. So she was really running people. And we got into a discussion last night about le joie et le ha. And we needed Glencora here today to talk about what the heck is going on with Dax extension, because this is a conversation we need to be having on the show, Jonathan. So I felt like we would be fascinated and riveted and more things to happen. But let's talk about it. This weekend belonged to no one more than Diana Davis, who ascended ice dance the way I have predicted for so long. Jonathan, I have been called crazy. People have said nasty things about me in the comments, that I'm just obsessed with Eteri and that, you know, Diana is not very good. I have said all along that this girl will be cheated and pushed to the top of the podium. And as we can see by the scores from the Ukrainian judge, if you go on skatingscores.com, it is happening. Okay, it is happening. Jonathan, what did you make of her debut this season?
Well, we have seen these programs, right, previously, and they were the same here to me. I find the rhythm dance to be rather upsetting. And then I find the Black Swan upsetting because, again, you realize how Gleb does really know how to move, and then he's really just sort of dragging her around. What bothered me more than their skating was their placement, because I think the Czech team is very powerful, but I love Zingas and Kolesnik so much that it was horrifying to me that they ended up off the podium. I think the whole ordinals for this dance competition should have gone differently. I would have.
Don't you think Zingas and Kolesnik? Don't you think that Zingas and Kolesnik deserved that placement after Igor Spielband wasn't coaching Diana anymore due to political unsavorability, perhaps?
That's because we talk about how IJS has advanced ice dance in so many ways. Actually, the only discipline that seems to have benefited in a way, and so you think you've knocked out some of that political nonsense. But here against the Americans, very clearly something was at play, because I found their performances this weekend to be my favorite.
Well, I want to ask both of you about Swan Lake. It is one of my favorite pieces of music. I've seen it at Lincoln Center. And yes, the Russians will tell you they invented ballet, which is not technically correct, but they certainly revolutionized it, right? And Swan Lake, I love to see Lopatkina, perform in this role. Diana Davis, not quite Juliana. And I wanted to ask you both about the music edit, because I don't think that it did much for them. And structurally, where they placed the elements, I didn't find that it helped. And I was wondering what you both heard with, more professional ears. Glencora.
I think what's most confusing is that it's mostly the White Swan theme, and they have very much readily taken on that Black Swan, and I think he's the prince. The epaulets, I think he's the prince. And so to use none of the Black Swan music really, and have it mostly be, honestly, the overture. That's what's most confusing to me. And also, the program is supposed to be lush because it's full orchestra. It's using all the main swan theme played by the oboe, and it's supposed to be regal and big, and I don't think their program composition really mirrored that. There's a lot of repeated moves, a lot of legs and attitude, which is ballet for sure, but I think composition wise it could have been a little bit more varied, but it's hard because the music edit, it recapitulated so much. So
yeah, it just got repetitive after a while, and there's such a grandness due to the orchestration and all of this sort of stuff that they are incapable of matching. So this is that thing you talk about, Dave, where it was almost like the music is crashing down on them because they don't have the power or take up enough space to sort of fill that sound.
Yeah, I felt like, I think that the rhythm dance is a much better vehicle for them because of the music edit, right? And to me, the moment where I noticed that the free dance is really not working is when they get to, you know, doing the step sequence in hold. Prior to that, obviously she had a mistake on the twizzle, but to me, this is when the music is picking up. It's becoming, you know, big crescendos are happening, and they are not covering ice. And Gleb is a very strong skater, but I wouldn't say that he's necessarily a huge flower. But in this program, I didn't find that she really shines. And I think that she comes alive more when she does more of the Michael Jackson, or, you know, 2 seasons ago in the rhythm dance, I didn't find that this really made her shine. And Glencore had a really good point last night about the tutu, because this is one of Eteri's favorite gimmicks. And I actually think it works against the skaters, but I think in singles, no one cares as long as you land the jumps. So maybe they haven't realized it. But I think that if you're going to make the ballet comparison, it's actually one that I wouldn't make. Unless you are Sasha Cohen or Oksana Bayul, I would stay away from that because I think it makes you look weaker. And when they put the tutu on Diana, to me, it makes her look very weak. Plus, she has the black tights that go over the ankle of her skate, which further makes her feet look flexed the whole program.
The problem with tutus is that they're made of tulle. So they don't show speed, they don't show movement. And so using it in a skating program really doesn't make sense, because the reason why people have things hanging off their costumes is to show speed and movement from a visual perspective. And not only that, it wasn't a full tutu. We had to cut the tutu to make it safe enough to do all of the maneuvers that they need to do in this program. And so you've got a tutu that goes straight out as opposed to the arch that a normal tutu has. And then it's made of a material that just doesn't show speed. So whether they have speed or not, you would just not know it because of what they used in this program. I do think the black tights are problematic. If you're going to follow the ballet, then you should have not peach tights, that doesn't read well on ice, but tan tights for sure.
Well, I was confused by that. Sorry to interrupt, Dave. It's because when we see a version of that kind of costuming, I assume we're getting the Black Swan edit, or we're getting some sort of like poppy, funky version of Black Swan. And he is dressed sort of very classically and giving you classical lines. And she sort of has this like edge to her look, but kind of just ends up standing around. It seems like she's just kind of waiting for him to do his stuff almost.
Yeah, listen, Glencore, you made a point yesterday about the tutu and how it emphasizes the rear end when someone doesn't have good posture. Could you explain this? Because now that I think about it, that's all I think of when I think back to when Zagitova wasn't jumping, what we could see of her performance.
So if you look at them as a pair, he's really fluid. But the thing is that fluidity doesn't match this music, and that's why it doesn't read quite right. Like when you see him move, you're like, oh, this program's almost too easy for you. Like you look so comfortable, but that's why it doesn't read quite right on him either. When it comes to her, if you watch just her, even in the partnering, like when she pushes under for progressive, it's not pushed all the way, and she doesn't follow through on her movements, and things aren't finished, and that is affecting her posture. So she's bending forward a little bit at the waist and not quite tucking her pelvis underneath her when she's finishing these movements. And unfortunately, when you're wearing a really short tutu, that kind of mistake is almost more glaring. You know, it's going into an edge on the bend, and then it's turning and re-bending, and that's what's missing a little bit from her skating, for sure.
You know, when I work with Alexei, he's really obsessive about pointing the baby toe and stretching the baby toe down on your foot on the cross under, and Diana is never doing that. Gleb does it, but never doing it. And I think that's from her singles days. Yeah.
Well, you see her do there's a back crossover she does while they're in hold, and it's she's literally picking the foot up
and putting it down over. It's like a singles backwards crossover. And you know, you look at that and it's a moment in time and you're like, why does this even matter? And it's like, well, it's ice dance, and when you're skating to huge music, it matters.
Yeah, to me, I see a lot of weaknesses. Obviously, the judges didn't. If you go into their skating scores, but
yeah, I can't even. I'm looking at the PCS right now, and everything we're talking about, like the composition is lacking. Georgia had them first. Ukraine had them first. Like in the presentation, we're talking about where we weren't really getting that performance energy. They still were second best. Skating skills, all the things you just mentioned. Slovakia, Georgia, the US and the Ukraine had them as the second best skating skills. And I don't buy it. I have not seen Zingas and Kolesnik in person, but I just think they are faster. They're more interesting. I find the Czech more powerful. I find at least Marjorie and Zach, even though this was not my free dance of my dreams for them, they do have quality to them. And I just don't see that PCS being judged here. And that's when I'm like, oh no, are we back to this?
well, how about the GOE? Because
They had a major error, right?
yeah, on the twizzle.
Everybody.
She fell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She did fall.
So
But I'm curious about the GOE and how you would go, because their lifts are their strength as a team, which is, listen, Igor Spielban loves a waif to get dragged around the ice for decades, right? That is his aesthetic. However, you have to have beautiful lifts, right? If you go back to Avon Lee Nguyen, if you go even, Zingas has the beautiful upper body and uses the arms. Nguyen, even Naomi Lang or Jamie Silverstein, they always had the extended, beautiful, pointed feet, right? Diana, who was developed by Spielban for several years, when you watch the lifts, they're obviously ripping off, performing an homage to Hubble and influenced by Hubble and Donahue on the first lift of their program. However, Diana's core is not as strong as it could be to make really beautiful positions in the lifts. And I find that while they are doing interesting things, because her feet are rather flexed and she doesn't hold her limbs in really beautiful stretched positions, that the shapes that they're making are weaker, where I don't know that I would go above a 2 or a 3 when they're going to be hoping for the 4s and 5s, right? And to really watch it this season against like Chalk and Bates, and where they can, and Chalk and Bates, listen, also developed by Spielband, using the lifts and elements like that to really gain points. I find that this team, their lifts are still not really finished.
there are a lot of inverted lifts in this program, and I think it's to mask the line. She does a lot of attitude holds, and the foot is flat. It's not winged and pointed up like in traditional ballet. And although you're not really asking these skaters to be prima ballerinas in a piece like Swan Lake, these little details are glaring. And I think the inverted lifts are to mask a lot of that, basically.
If their free dance were to Liberian Girl, we wouldn't be focusing on it this much, but it's to Swan Lake, the most one of the iconic of all Russian ballets. So I think it's a bad choice, personally. I don't know. It's a thing. I always thought that Ashley Wagner's Swan Lake made her seem clunky. Other people loved it. So,
but again, remember, she wasn't so much Swan Lake as she was legitimately Black Swan. So yeah, I think that she's also owning that certain parts can be more angular and more modern to sort of get out of that comparison. But here we were supposed to just buy this classical piece. Amazing. And even like when Ilinik and Katsalapov did it in Sochi, what they may not have had in natural balletic line, they gave you in razzmatazz. Like they were performing and giving you sort of show-stopping, crowd-pleasing moments, and this has neither.
I think it was a good choice for Ilinik because she does have that leg extension, right? That you need. It
was that final move that was always so exciting, where she like tumbled down and they did that thing. But this is missing a wow moment. And
they also had original moves. Remember when they did the lift and she's spinning around and different things, like they kept you guessing and they kept your interest during that program. So
well, I think Philip Mills, right, gave Ashley Wagner that program to teach her something and to work on the line. And don't forget, this is this team's first season with new coaches. I think maybe a workhorse was given to make them comfortable, teach them something. Maybe they are addressing the technical issues, and they think something that is well known is the best vehicle to do that rather than something too avant-garde.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the modern approach that Marjorie Lajoie and Zach Lilah are doing. Listen, last year they did Nureyev, and again, I thought this is more of a balletic program, and I didn't think that it matched them because of Zach. I also thought that she had the reddish orange hair last season. I just thought it was a strange aesthetic for the free dance. I thought it worked in the rhythm dance, but I didn't think that that program ever matched them. This year, I think she is back to blonde. I think she looks really great in this free dance. He was a little off and seemed up in his shoulders the whole program. But okay, can you explain, Glencore, his leg extension? Because it's one of those things, like once you see it, you can't unsee it. And for me, it's glaring for me during the program.
Well, to explain this, so when you go back all the way back to learn to skate and you do swizzles, you start in a first position, your heels are together, you're tweak it out. Somewhere over time, skaters turn their feet in and they start pushing from the parallel. So what I think is happening is like he's not really pushing from the middle of his blade, and so he's pushing too far back and is causing his toe to point down. And then when he bends his knee, the free leg gets fixed and it's turned out, but he'd be better off pushing at a slight 45-degree angle back towards the dégagé. Yeah, so ballet is, you're told behind your bun, right? Skating, if you do that, you look like you're turning the hip down and then your toe is pointed down. And so he fixes it normally when he bends and goes on an edge, right? Because then the free leg gets put where it needs to be. But I think it's pushing from a parallel versus a slight third position, which is your front foot is in the instep. So pushing that instep out at a 45-degree angle, I think would give him that turnout. The hips also look a little bit closed off. You can see that in the C step, formerly known as Mohawk. It's a little bit flicked versus like the leg comes back in a coupe and it's placed. The hips are just seem a little bit closed is all. And they're probably not. He's probably an extremely flexible skater. You know.
Did you like the program, Jonathan? What did you think of them?
Just gonna say I really enjoyed the thriller rhythm.
Okay. All right.
I was on board for it because, you know, as we know, like Michael Jackson is being overused with this 80s thing, but we have not seen a thriller. I thought their costumes were on point, and it actually, even though one could think, oh gosh, it's Thriller, this is so cringe, it was one of the least cringe rhythm dances we've seen, and I just kind of liked his sort of vocabulary of movement in the rhythm dance. To me, Dave, as you were talking about last season, the White Crow wasn't really it. Like, they so interested me with the Rio program. They were really making a statement and going for it. And this just seems more down that sort of soft, melancholy, lovely sort of thing, which I don't buy from them as much as something that's more unique and individual. So, I mean, we know obviously with Fear and Gibson, and when it was Smart and Diaz and all these things, we know that school knows how to give more niche-y kind of programs, and I think they need them, because I thought the rhythm dance worked for me, but the free dance just sort of fell flat. I can't connect to it emotionally. I'm not invested. It's easy for me to become distracted during it.
Yeah, I think that they do really well with the fun rhythm dance type program they did. Even last year, I mean, it wasn't my favorite, but they've really develop this personality as a team that allows them to shine and be different and unique to stand out. Because I actually find that now that there are two Czech teams, you know, we have the other Caroline team, I found that there's a lot of sameness going on as these elements become repetitive for every team. And I found that they stand out, at least. They make you remember them in the rhythm dance. And I think that personality really works well. To me, their free dance, it's almost like in the rhythm dance, they are a Broadway character actor or actress, right? But then in the free dance, they try to be a romantic lead, and it doesn't quite work, right? It would be like if Javier Fernandez tried to do a ballet program, right? Or a modern program, and you'd be like, what? You know, it's just, there's something that it's not quite.
One, it's not inherently more important than the other. It doesn't have to be this sort of like melancholy, beautiful, introspective thing. Because you see the teams that are thriving right now, they kind of go with funky. That last year's world podium was all out of the box stuff. Gone is this sort of Papadakis Cizeron lilting beauty. So I don't know why they're not sort of leaning into what makes them more different and instead trying to appear the same in a sort of a vintage way, I'm finding.
They seem to enjoy the rhythm dance a lot more. You can see it on their face, how they present themselves. It just seems like this is more of their wheelhouse and what they want to do, for sure.
Yeah. I'm wondering what you both thought of Zingas and Kolesnik, because there's been a lot of buzz for them since nationals, but especially over the last several months with monitoring sessions that have gone on at Dallas, and then at Champs Camp. There's been a lot of talk that they could move on to the world team this year. I'm curious what you thought of their programs and where they both stand in US ice dance right now.
I'm obsessed with them. I love them. I am their biggest fan. I was last year at nationals too, when I thought they should have been a spot higher than they were. I thought they should have been spots higher than they were here. And, you know, we've had a lot of conversations about where we see these very brilliant male ice dancers sort of teamed up with a partner that may not match their level of skating. What she is able to give you in like her arm extension, her commitment to face, her ability to recognize that there is an audience, Dave, as you were talking about, she has a very cold neck, like all of this speed, the sharpness of what they're doing, their packaging was lovely. I mean, it's Beauty and the Beast, which again, I was into the beginning when they used that Dies Irae thing, because it's all so dramatic and cinematic. For me, they spent a little too much time in the middle on like the cheeseball cinematic Tale as Old as Time section, because there's so much interesting instrumental music that soundtrack uses. I just would have encouraged a little bit more of that. But in general, I am rooting for them and felt that they really got dealt a dirty hand here with the judging.
I when I first saw Beauty and the Beast, I was like, oh no, but I think you have to remember that these illustration is so much richer, and they really are cinematic. And I love that they brought in the Beast song at the end. And I thought this there was one music cut that I thought was a little bit stark, but I thought that this program was huge, and I really loved the music choice for that, and I also enjoyed the rhythm dance. I think the one Achilles heel is you can tell that she's new to ice dance still a little bit, and like she's grown so much over the off season, and like they look fantastic. And I think as they spend more and more time together, they're well matched. They look great together as a team. You know, if we're still putting Chalk and Bates at the top, I would definitely have them right up there after them at least.
So when you say you sort of see that she looks newer to it, I must admit, because she is such an alluring performer, I tend to focus waist up. And waist up, to me, she is one of the finest female ice dancers on the circuit. But I'm assuming you, with your background, are probably looking waist down and seeing the things that I'm not. I admit that I have so clearly taken to them that I will forgive. I will forgive anything for them because I'm just rooting for them.
And that's kudos to her, right? Her presentation, her cold neck is so fantastic that, you know, it almost doesn't matter. But if you look at her feet, there's just some technical things. She came to ice dance in 2022 though, so I think we can cut her some slack on that front. And like, I think this team is really going to grow, and I think height wise they're well matched, physicality they're well matched, and you know there were some unison things, but we're early in the season, but not as many unison, not as much unison wise as more seasoned teams. So I do think they're
in terms of US ice dance, I think this is a bright future for sure.
I know that there were stories when Ponomarenko left Spielbahn, that Spielbahn was favoring Kolesnik. I think he bet on the right horse. Just because of his skating ability. We always talk about Anthony and the limitations of his ankle bend. And I think if you just look at how Kolesnik moves, he reminds me a bit of that Charlie White, Scott Moyer, really strong ice dance guy. Like physically, chest, upper body, he's powerful in just his movement and his partnering skills. And I think he has a lot of what it takes. I actually think he could perform a bit more in the free dance especially, but I think overall they're a really good, solid team. And I see them moving up. I thought that they could actually have a little bit more speed, but I think it will come throughout the season as they move forward. But I have my eye on them. I think with the material that we saw from Green and Parsons, I think that Zingas and Kolesnik, with Igor's experience and political experience, will push them ahead of Green and Parsons, especially with their material. And then I'm looking at Hawaii and Baker. I mean, I think they're ahead of Ponomarenko at this point.
Agreed. Yeah.
Carrera and Ponomarenko. I have to say, I think it will be tough for Hawaii and Baker to really feel confident that they're going to stay ahead of this team. I wonder how that will affect them and affect them with the judges, right? Because I think being out of competition for a year in a discipline like ice dance, there's a lot of chatter, right? And if the judges start crafting a narrative against them, it could be very difficult for them to maintain their position. So I wonder what is going to happen. And I'm, as excited to see what will happen with Hawaii and Baker. I think that they need to come out looking fantastic. Ice dance is not a discipline like singles where you can say they're going to get the jumps together throughout the season, just give them time. In ice dance, you have to come out looking really great at the beginning of the season. Otherwise, the judges will start to change their opinion of you. And it's just a very different discipline. So, yeah. I think there's going to be shifting happening, but that's exciting at the same time. But
I think we're ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we're ready for some shifting and shakeups in the dance world. Okay, I'm curious what you both thought of Caroline's Canadian team, Peter Beaumont, Natalia Bashinka. Okay, the Romeo and Juliet. I thought that the opening choreography was so great. They weren't quite in unison when they do the bracket to the kind of the spiral movement. I thought that was really cool, but I zoned out mid-performance. And I don't know if it just felt dated. It felt like maybe 15 years ago. To me, 18 years ago, I don't know exactly what it was about this performance, but it went from such a cool opening to a flat free dance for me. What did you both think?
I'm gonna admit I didn't get a chance to watch this one.
Oh, okay. John.
So I watched the top 5 teams because again, this was one where the videos were coming in so sporadically.
Yes.
So I must admit that I only watched the top 5 dance teams.
That's fine. I think that they are.
Now I'm intrigued. Now I'm intrigued to go watch the Romeo and
Now we
Juliet.
can go watch this. Yes.
It has a fantastic opening, okay? But it could have a little bit more wow factor by having precise Gordieva and Grinkov level unison, okay?
It's the Prokofiev, or it's or it's the movie?
It's the movie, Jonathan.
Oh.
Okay. And
The new movie or the old movie?
Old movie, Nino Rota.
This is such a sidetrack that has nothing to do with skating, but I just read an article that the child actors at the time that did the Romeo and Juliet are suing the studio.
They are.
Right now. Yeah, for abusive conditions. So there's a fun twist. Yeah.
Brooke Shields in Blue Lagoon is next. Yeah, I don't know. That could but yeah. Okay. Fear and Gibson and their programs. We've now seen the Rocky program a number of times. I have to say, I think it's developing in its own way. I think Eteri is going to make us root for this Rocky program, because with the scores, I think we know what's coming, right? With the climbing that has happened before with Lubnitskaya and many Eteri skaters before them, even this own team during the Olympic season. What are you making about where we are with the Rocky program?
I think the creativity is in the risk of using it, because we were all thinking the same thing when they announced this program choice. And if they can make this work to read as a competitive program, I think that will be a success in itself. Right now, it still needs growing. I think the problem with the character relation, because we were like, are they both Rocky? Is she Adrian? I'm not sure she can be Adrian, because it's really the hero's journey, and Adrian is kind of a bystander to the hero's journey. So I think they're just both on this hero's journey as Rocky. And if they can grow the program more and make it work, I think that would be really interesting. And the success of that would be amazing, because then it's like pieces we think are only exhibition programs can be used in the competitive arena. However, it's just not there yet. I think it needs more growth.
To me, like part of the the kitsch of doing a boxing program, which I think she does seem to be trained by him, ergo she is Rocky. I'm not totally following either. Like, I just think in general, if you're going to do gimmicks and like fun things around the boxing theme with this music, I would like to see you do it with the skating. Like, I would like to see an unconventional rotational lift that is somehow a nod to something boxing, or do some sort of choreo slide that's a little bit something more in that route, because all of the sort of gimmickry happens while they're not skating. They're just standing there doing pantomime. They're standing there doing jump roping. They're standing there stretching. They're standing there doing like a fight scene. And so to me, if you want to make it seem more competitive, those interesting concepts have to come in the choreography through skating, and not just almost a halt of the choreography to now do some kitsch and then pick back up with some elements we have to do.
Well, and that's a risk in itself. We're giving up seconds time for content to act things out and mimic the movies, and box and jump rope and slide across the ice. And so that's
no longer push-ups.
And as long as we got rid of the push-up, right? And that's actually what's interesting about it. It's like, can this work? Can this be on the podium when we're giving up seconds to act something out? That is part of the performance, and it is reflected in the program components. However, in my personal opinion, this is still too much of an exhibition type of music to use in a competitive arena. But if they're going to stick with it and make it work, man, would that be interesting for sure.
It is interesting to me. I have to say, I don't see it as a hero's journey. I think it's meant to be a kitsch, almost send up. And the reason is because even when they take the poses, they're kind of being silly and, dusting the dirt off the shoulder. But I'm confused, actually, if this is pure send up or if this is supposed to be a hero journey, because the opening to me says spoof. It reminds me of an Ugly Sweater Christmas Party kind of vibe, right? And I'm like, that to me is
in on the joke in the beginning. Yeah.
Although it goes into the Tommy Prophet like version of Eye of the Tiger. And this is where I think we see a weakness in this team's charisma and emotion, which they do have so much charisma for this kitsch, for this fun program. But this cover actually requires them to relate to one another and tell an emotional story that they actually don't quite tell, right? So then I become confused about, are we in on a joke? Are they supposed to have some like relationship? Is she Adrian? I'm not sure. But then at the end, we get back to the end where I actually think they use the choreo step very well. And I actually think it's choreographed really well in the last minute or so of the program, maybe last 75 seconds, where it gets back to kind of that kitschy, in on the joke, fun, we're on a ride with them. But the program is a little bit uneven for them. And I'm just not sure what is happening.
Well, and you made a great point last week, I thought, Dave, when talking about the Zorro program of Smart and Diaz. They didn't do the sword fight thinking it was cutesy kitsch. They were completely serious as they delivered that. And that's ultimately what made it so exciting.
Yeah, so I think this might be more exciting if it were dead serious, right? And if you were to make this dead serious, I would have them take a stand, but not over joke, take the first pose, right? And I would get rid of the jump ropes. I think it's really silly. And frankly, she made a mistake in the twizzles anyway, and the second set. And I don't think that that's their best element. So I would maybe want to get through that element and just make that as strong as possible. And I don't know that it enhances that element. So
I don't think when you sit down and you pick a program for the season, the intent is ever to pick a spoof or a joke. And I don't think that's the intent here for sure. I think maybe sitting and workshopping the character profiling, coming up with a story for this, like where are we bringing the audience from and where are we taking them to? That might actually help with the presentation of this, because everything you're saying, I totally agree with. I'm just not sure that's actually what's intended here. And, you know, if you spend your life training for the Grand Prix, the World Championships, things of that nature, I think the intention is just not coming across right now. And maybe it will by the end of the season, for sure.
Yeah. Well, what did you think of the Tashlers? Because this, to me, last year they had the global warming program, right? Obviously, they have another Czech team on their tail.
Another brother-sister Czech team on their tail. Like, what's happening over there? Also powerful. It's interesting to see the comparisons between those two.
This to me, the free dance falls flat. For me, I'm curious what the two of you think.
Well, and did it open with, "This is for you, Dad"? Is that what they said at the beginning?
Yes, it's a tribute to their father, I believe.
Yeah, which then I think, oh, okay, so I may not understand what is about to come because maybe it is so implicitly personal to whatever they're trying to say to their father. I didn't really understand the tribute. I didn't really, something like that could have been very heartwarming. Do you need to say it at the beginning? I don't know. But their strength is their strength. And so again, it seems like a team that won't, what's the right word? Won't lean into their strengths and keep trying to fight them. And I just want some like huge, bombastic energy, enormous number with tremendous power. Just go with what you have. Otherwise, it just seems like they apologize for the things they do. So they're not really doing that, and they can't really achieve this other aesthetic. So now I don't know where we're left.
Yeah.
I think their power does make you feel at ease. Like it reads as consistency. I think the rhythm dance was the more successful program here for sure.
Yeah.
What do you think about the use of Liberian Girl for this year? Why did all of the Russian choreographers go for this? It's such a random song on Bad. I mean, I was rewatching Bad 25, the documentary, which is worth watching if you're interested in how Quincy Jones and Michael put it together. To me, Liberian Girl is so strange on there and such a forgotten track. I wonder how this came about.
It's for the beats per minute, right?
I think so, yeah.
So the Silver Samba, you can't be less than 100 beats per minute, and I guess we Googled Michael Jackson tunes that fit that bill, and that's what came up.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
It's
And this is odd to me, but before you go, Glenn Corax, I know you have to run. You are really waiting for one program this season, and after seeing Rocky, I have to be honest, I want to see it, but this is the program I'm maybe nervous about. the Jason Brown Tarzan program, I feel could go in a Fear and Gibson-like way. He's very happy, I don't know what I think about this.
I do.
I don't know. They posted clips of the step sequence, and he does like a forward outside loop to a plie in fifth position, and the hands are going all over the place. And I was just like, when can I see this?
Well, even they posted like a preview of it when like they were first announcing the music. It was just that opening. And again, like we were talking about Beauty and the Beast. Yes, Beauty and the Beast has cheesy music, but it also has the Dies Irae and all this like monumental cinematic quality to it, which I'm hoping is the route they go, because in that opening preview, they showed this incredible orchestral music, and then with the boom, and he turned, and I was like, I'm in. I want to see it also.
The reason why I'm excited is because Tarzan takes extreme range of motion, and I can't think of a better skater to tackle it. And yes, when I heard Beauty and the Beast, I was like, oh no, are we gonna have Angela Lansbury come out? And, like what version of Beauty and the Beast are we using? But then when it came to fruition with the huge orchestration and bringing in the new song at the end, which Josh Groban actually just did a version of it, and he did a really great job in my opinion. And it was Olympic. This was a huge program that built, and it was fantastic. And I was just like, I was wrong. But then I saw Tarzan, and I had the same reaction, like, oh man. But then like that, as Genesis said, that opening came out with him in full range, and then I keep seeing the step sequence and the amount of training this program is taking, and I was like, when is this? When can I see this? I need to see this.
I want to see it.
I want.
I appreciate a risk. I am ready for it. I think Roheen is in his creative element. I was happy with him with Jason and Cowrie last season, so I'm on board. I just, Tarzan can go a million ways, and we finally got Jason cutting his hair. We don't want to go back to any bad patterns, Cora. Okay,
I know, but when I heard Man of La Mancha last year, I was like, oh no, why? But then you see the program, and you're like,
this is actually really well done, and yeah, let's dream that impossible dream. Okay.
In recent seasons, he has not given us a reason to doubt their choice.
I know, but I just remember there were some times during the Corey 8 era when we were into Hamilton and going
different era. Yes, I agree with you.
I'm just nervous, okay? If we could also have a Joshua Ferris where we knew we had at least one bankable program and Alex Johnson that we were going to fall in love with. There's a lot riding on him this season. To me, Kevin Amos's programs this year are not my favorite, okay? So I
don't know. I'm kind of into the potential of Bolero.
Oh, I'm not into it. I'm so not into it. So
I actually don't mind the use of Bolero as long as it's done really well. I feel differently about war horses. If you can come out in Swan Lake and look like Uliana Lopakina and land that triple Lutz, I am here for you. Okay, but it has to be done well.
It has to be done well. So yeah, listen, I'm all for a big moment. So the more that's put into the program, the better. I'm excited for Gillis and Poirier, the Canadanes, obviously Chalk and Bates, seeing Hawaii and Baker. They're supposed to be at Finlandia. But coming up, Diana was briefly on the roster for Finlandia, but here's where Terry is a genius, okay? They're going to the Budapest Trophy, which is like rigged for them to win, right? And remember, we have our Diana's coach, who was not a Terry's first choice to represent them, but there are going to be two Israeli teams at the competition. Both are from Montclair, but remember his son represents Israel, so maybe there's going to be some sort of alliance politically at this Budapest Trophy. Also, our team from Poland, remember our favorite caller, who maybe is good friends with Lakiernik and Zueva and Spielband over the years. So I think Diana's got a great chance to win, which would make her an alternate for the Grand Prix. There's just a lot of things happening, and I think Eteri is masterminding a climb and ice dance, and just pay attention. Don't sleep on what is going to happen at this Budapest Trophy, because it's one to at least check the protocols for at the end of the competition. So Thank you for your insight, Glencora. You know, we are all
Thank
going
you
to
for having me.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much. So we were just saying, I think for us, her sound was wonky, but sometimes it's not when it's recorded. So anyway, it was a shot and an attempt, and if it worked, it worked. But I think, you know, people get bored of just hearing us. So yes,
insightful what she was talking about with a lot of those moves and things to look for.
Well, last week, some of the younger fans were upset. They thought we were too harsh on Isabeau. And to me, that comes with, I actually want her to do well. And I'm seriously worried that there haven't been changes made to her coaching or technique.
I noticed that as well. I thought, oh, does Isabel have an army of online supporters? Because they seem to come out of the woodwork. And here was the thing. There were comments like, oh, just because you don't like her technique because it's not the regular technique doesn't mean it's not good. And I was like, no, we sort of care about the integrity of what we're watching. And if something is sort of not it, I don't know.
I also don't want to see a young skater go through puberty and lose the jumps in a horrific way and go through that trauma. So just that is kind of where that comes from. We've seen it with Lipnitskaya, we've seen it with Alyssa Liu, you know, and Alyssa Liu went through a lot while she was skating, and there's a lot of pressure associated with that.
Yeah.
You know, we've watched skating for a million years. Not everybody has. People are excited. I get why people are excited about Isabeau. She has an eye-catching style, right? And the commentators have maybe overlooked some technical things because the US is in need of
something.
Star. So anyway, I am so curious. This weekend for me, I keep thinking about the rise of South Korea. I think it's coming. Although June and Haein were both not in full stamina, and it was really glaring, I thought, at this competition. I don't know if it's good or bad. In the past, the South Korean skaters have really burned out towards the end of the season. I know that June was very busy doing, you know, promotional things over the summer and shows, and I'm thinking that this was good. I mean, his quad sows were fantastic, although maybe not as powerful as higher at Worlds, but I noticed that he had major stamina problems, getting tired after the second or third element. And even his spins that are usually so great seemed more tired, but he will have obviously time to get this together. And I think it's a good problem that he is not peaked this early, because it is a very long year.
As opposed to things we have seen from the Korean team in general, it does not seem like burned out. It seemed like just sort of like dusting some stuff off and like starting. It seemed early, as opposed to, oh my gosh, they have already competed a whole season without us even realizing it already.
Yeah. No, I felt for him because I'm moving up a level, so like the program is longer, right? And being old, you know, trying to do that stamina and running and, you know, getting that and doing things in the second half become much more exhausting. So I noticed his quad toe pattern and timing just seems slightly off. It doesn't look like he can't do the jump, but it seems like in both programs, the setup and the rhythm seems a little off going.
And yet he landed it in the short, didn't he? It was, I think it was, oh, sorry, the quad toe. Sorry, you were correct. The quad toe, he popped in the short, and he got the axel, which was confusing.
Got the axel, and yes, and you could still see the sweet spot on his pattern of when he should jump, and then he waits, and that's a nervous habit, right? But in the free, both axles, I think, didn't have enough setup, and his rhythm and stamina, they both seemed rushed. And it seemed like they actually need to figure out how to let him breathe, have the energy to do it, and then pause, go into it. They both seemed rushed, like he never reached the toe pick on the takeoff. And these were terrible pops. These were terrible pops.
Well, I mean, it was almost like he was like showing his choreography and marking through the axles in the free skate almost. It had that sort of, like he just like did a spin with his leg up. Like he didn't even really leave the ice, it seemed. But what was intriguing to me is the change in jump layout, because now they are doing 2 quad sows in the free skate, which to me seemed like a no-brainer, should have always been the case. I wonder, I'm sure it equates to like a few more points, but like, maybe do 2 triple flips instead of 2 triple axels. I don't understand why. This is a jump that has a thing for him. So why would you now ask him to do it twice? I would rather bank on solid points with GOE with 2 flips or something like that, as opposed to attempt a little more pointage with the 2 axels and have them potentially go awry and pretty much back to back, right?
Once you have to go through the season, go big, and then make the adjustments.
Okay.
Sometimes I think, listen, if they were just doing points for points in base value, right? I think that when you start the season, things were great at the World Championships, at the World Team Trophy. Obviously, he made it through the axles and they were fine, right? So when you create the program, you're coming off of that memory, right? So everything was great. But now we're competing it at the start of the season and you're doing it and it's not, right? So to do 3 quads takes way more power than doing 2 quads. So when you get to the axles, you're even more exhausted and he's not in shape yet. And he's also performing, which a lot of the other boys do not do. And
I would like to say, first of all, I loved these 2 programs.
I do. Masquerade Waltz and Batman, I love them both. I really
know.
love Batman for him. Yeah.
How do you miss a triple axel to Batman? That's Tanya's thing when she...
Yes.
God, of all music, to miss a triple axel to it can't be Batman. But in the waltz in particular, I always liked him from day one. Even though sometimes people we would have on the show were like, I don't know what's going on with there yet, because there was that loose, cool noodliness about him. He has maintained that sort of looseness, but created this positive kind of tension in his extension. So all of his moves were so committed all the way through, fully executed. And there was a strength to his choreography that I thought was kind of a change, almost looked like he really appeared a bit older in a positive way, a bit stronger in a way choreographically. There's just more core in his body in a lot of the movements, and I found it very exciting. So again, I was okay to sort of let some of that go under the guise of maybe it's early and they're still figuring out jump layout. But the programs I loved, and his commitment to the moves I thought were sensational.
I think this year is his window. He's the right age. I think that, listen, Shoma is wonderful. He's been on top now for a long time, and he's had 2 seasons where he won. The third is very difficult in any sport to get a 3-peat. You start getting exhausted. Ilya Malinin is coming up. He has the quad axel. He actually does his program at Glencora's rink, and she was saying 1 day a week he skates there. She actually told me that anytime he would miss the quad axel, the music would go off and they would start, which shows you where the emphasis is in terms of the program, right? Okay. I think for Ilya, they made improvements to his presentation, but he's not there yet.
Yes, in process with that, yeah.
Don't think it would be a bad thing to make him develop for 1 more year and to keep pushing him. Remember, Boitano didn't arrive until the Olympics, right? I don't think it would be bad for Ilya to have to keep clawing to the top and to be forced to really improve in those areas. And I think for Jun, he has the right charisma, the right look, the right talent, the right kind of programs, that he kind of has the mix of all of the ingredients to be a huge star for the sport. The president of the ISU is South Korean. There's perhaps more interest from South Korean companies because South Korean skaters are starting to win again, as the Japanese market isn't quite what it was during Yuzuru Hanyu's era. It would not be a bad thing for South Korea to have a bigger market, right, for the ISU. So I think that the stars are sort of aligning, but he has to deliver, right? So whether they either get those axles done in the second half of the season, or maybe take one out and go for a flip, right? But
I never know on the outside, as a viewer, as a fan, how much credit to give or not to give a coach in certain scenarios. So we had seen Jun Hwan have beautiful programs last year. Very cool, gorgeous quad south, all this sort of stuff. He really did line it up. I don't know, because of his realignment with Brian, or it just happened to be happening while he was realigning with Brian. So now, knowing that Brian is out of the picture, I don't know, is more Brian the answer, or is that just an aside thing and they're going to figure this out in their own time, regardless of who's coaching?
I think we'll see. And I think we'll see. But I do think for Jun, right, there's a lot more at stake, right? He's becoming a bigger profile in South Korea. So there's more pressure on his shoulders and more riding on this, right? Continued success is very important for building your profile. So, and I think that the Batman program is great. And I think that the Masquerade Waltz is, you know, classic. And
he does it very well in his own way. It's not like, oh, here's exactly what we would have expected. There's some unconventional moments that totally work for me in it.
Yeah, and I think when we saw Yuma, he's coming back and he still looks a little rough. He also has tremendous talent. So I think that he will rise, but Yuma also has been slower in terms of presentation and style.
Right.
So I think this would be Jun's window to really move forward, because as Yuma's coming back from, you know, quite a serious injury, this is kind of his time to land those, because it may take more quads than he has in the future to win. So I think this is his moment in time. You know, you got to seize it. And I'm, you know, wondering what will happen. You know, it's Nika Egadze's moment with the Eteri. He really thought he was going to win here.
Yes, he did. That was clear in the Kiss and Cry.
Was Morris better?
Not at jumping quads. I will say, like, some of his quads in the beginning, they do have height and they do have this nice up and down quality. The programs are empty. And then later, I don't know if that's just a loss of focus or not training. Things just, the spins were all over the place. The triples were all over the place.
Did you notice the axel and how it starts from, he like turns in his foot with the heel and completely pre-rotates his body on the takeoff? It's crazy. It's very reminiscent of Lipnitskaya, but worse. And he has one moment of like cross rolls that he does in the middle of the program, but overall the skating quality was not there. We did see Eteri. She looked very happy to be there. Poor Danny G stacked back in Russia. You know, Eteri thought she had a winner here in the men's event until this fall right in front of her.
Right.
To me, the continued mistakes in the program were worse, because Gabriel Frangiapane doing the same program as last year, where he also doesn't have tremendous skating quality. It was a moment.
Eked out those jumps. It was exciting. He was getting them, but they weren't the kind of jumps where it's clear he gets them all the time.
It was. And why did the Italians do the same 5-6 songs? I don't know.
I thought I said it the minute that it came on. I was like, not only is it the repeat, but Dave's going to exactly pick up on that. It's another like Italian piece of schlock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. It's just, what is this? Oh, I could see Valentina and Ondrej, you know, putting up a lift to that.
And droves others from that country.
Yes. Like, yeah. Oh, man. But overall, he's adding depth. And Daniel Grosso, we did see, withdrew at the last minute from this competition. They have not let us know what all of the details of those 3 missed doping tests were. But how interesting that Eteri seems just fine. You know, the Balyeva case is pushed off until the beginning of November. And this continues. Daniel Grosso's career seems misguided at best at this point.
And Diana is on the rise.
Diana is on the rise. Eteri is unscathed. She is the true winner of Big Brother. I think Eteri and Adam Rippon are like, would be the 2 winners of that show. Just, I think Adam would have the social game. Eteri would mastermind everything. Yeah. She'd probably befriend Adam. She would, right? They would
find a way. Yeah, he'd start choreographing for her camp.
Yeah, the men's event. Also, have we ever seen more man cleave than on Denis Vasilyev.
But remember, it was yet with that like frumpy panel on it in the pink.
Yeah, he doesn't look in you know, his best condition yet either, which it's a long season. He's been around a long time. I thought that there were some great moments for him. The music edit, I think, could be better, right? And highlight him. I thought it stayed too long in the opening piece, but it was a cool idea. But I thought the execution.
I don't know why it never grabs me. In recent years, his skating and his material has yet to grab me. And he used to be very interesting to me. And I don't know if that's part of his own growing up inside thing, but I disconnect very easily from his skating, and I feel we know what we're going to get. We're going to get a very flowy blouse. We're going to get the step out of an under rotated quad sow in the beginning, and it's just going to kind of, for me, plateau.
His hair looks so good. Thank God. The overall presentation to me with the hair, I'm already putting him higher in components.
Yeah, okay.
How I like automatically my view is higher, right? Okay. I imagine that when he was Stefan Lambiel's first main student, that there was a lot of attention put towards him, right?
And they were creating something special or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about the energy in the rink. I'm talking about the energy when you're driving in the car like Carolyn Taylor, right? And you're seeing movement. Are you seeing movement for Dennis? Or are you inspired by Shoma?
Right.
And I just think he got pushed down, right?
Yeah.
And even though Koshiro is not the biggest talent, he comes with all those Japanese shows and opportunities.
And new energy and new enthusiasm and a fresh start. Like, yeah, I get that.
And Dennis has been like a slower engine that could to reach this level. And I think with Dennis, we're always wondering, like, is he going to climb or has he plateaued? And he's
it's been kind of there for a while, what we're getting.
I think he has moments, right, where he does better. And I think during the Olympic season, we saw real moments for him. But I think he's figuring out, like, where is this going in his trajectory? So, and not knowing how he trains, it would be interesting. But it seems like he's figuring out where he sees himself in his career. And
because with the two French men and all the Italian men and now Georgian men, I don't foresee him achieving another Europeans moment. You know, sometimes some of the European skaters, I would think, oh, I wonder what keeps them going, only to remember that Europeans could be a huge opportunity for them. But I don't see Europeans being an opportunity for him at this point.
And the French had the French Masters this weekend. Adam Siohimfa beat Kevin. Kevin had a good short, not as good in the long. I think with Kevin, I think Adam is going to have to force him to up the technical content out of his comfort zone. I talked to Kevin's coach about it, and they were saying there's not that big of a point difference between doing the Lutz or doing the two quads in the short, but I think we're seeing with Jun Hwan Cha to even be considered in that upper group of men. I think you're going to have to do two quads in the short, and I think that's what Ilya, Jun, Shoma, Yuma, I think that's what they're going to do.
Right.
Suzuki, right? And I think that if there's one spot left in that group, is it going to be Adam? Is it going to be Jason? Jason's fabulous. So one of those other skaters will probably have a fall in one of the quads. So you're playing the law of averages there. Jason should be okay. And I don't know if Kevin's going to want to be in a direct comparison with Jason, quad or no quad. You get to be in whose spins have better quality and who has better program components. And I think last year Kevin had an edge, but you don't know what will happen year to year, right? And
that's part of that raw, exciting thing he brings is that unpredictability where Jason, you sort of know what you're getting and it's super finessed and reliable. Yeah.
I just find in Kevin's short this year, whether it's the costume that I'm not responding to or the music in general, I just see a loss of like pure vision. I just don't quite get it. I think that a lot of choreographic energy has been put into the bolero. I don't see the same amount of creative energy into this short. And I think that a lot of these men are bringing something to the table and any mistakes. So I think it's going to be a really tight battle. There's a lot of depth in the men's event. So I think it has to be really special. So yeah, I'm not sure, you know, and there are a lot of men that have pretty good skating skills or pretty good presentation. So if that's your thing and you're doing one quad and a Lutz, you definitely have to be perfect all the time, but you may have to do 2 quads. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready for this? This is the comment I was like, what is Dave going to do when you say this about the Nepela Memorial? I enjoyed Maddie Schizas' free skate program.
You know, that's not what I thought you were going to say about the Nepela Memorial. That's not I have one random comment about this that is not that. So I had a different random comment.
Oh, okay. All right. What I liked, or do you want to give it now or when it comes up?
Now, and then we can move.
Okay.
I really love the irony that a Russian like Eteri is reemerging in skating society at the memorial competition for a dead gay man, right? I mean, with all of the stuff they say in the Russian press.
Beautiful edges. Yeah.
Okay, so I almost didn't as the blade turns and got busy. One of the comments in other sports were saying, like, they were talking about speed, one of the sports, racing, sprint, whatever. Someone said something super transphobic, and they were like, send the trans people to figure skating and gymnastics, right? Now imagine if this happened in America, right? People would be like, that is a horrible thing to say, that's disgusting, you're transphobic. Do you want to know how the Russians handled it? It was classic. How dare you say that our sports should have these people? Each one was like more offended. Tarasova, Valentina Rodionenko, like, and each one made like a more disgusting comment than the last, saying that this person has lost her mind, like each thing. So I thought, how appropriate that after all of those comments, Eteri is honoring a dead gay man. Yes, okay, yes, I love this for her and for us.
It feels right.
It feels right. She is one of the people, you know, yes, okay. We love this for them, yeah. Okay, so Maddie Schizas, tell me what.
Meanwhile, so here's the thing. It is not to say that I think she is doing it to the program's full potential. I should look up who choreographed it. I really enjoyed it. She's giving you these like fluttery fingers to the Latin music, and there are some moments that again I could see done by another skater even more convincingly, and hopefully she will find that. But like even these sudden stops in the opening, if she commits just a little bit more, I think it's there. I was into it. It's been, I cannot say that in the past she has had material that I have responded to. And this was definitely a free skate I was responding to. I was shocked. I was shocked in a really wonderfully positive way. I mean, by the end, and it was an epidemic in the women's event here, where they were all running out of steam at the end, and then they would do this like illusion spin that just looked like they leaned over to tie their skate again and then stood back up.
I felt in general the women all laughed, right? All of them.
Yeah.
Even the winner, Haein, who's been around for a bit. Again, the Korean women were all having this like, are they church ladies? Like they did have the cross, right? And the costumes are all rather long with the long sleeves and the flowy stuff that looks like maybe they're
downing or something. Yeah.
Nice downy, but like with like sea urchin type things hanging off, like they're very demure.
I know exactly what the outfits you're talking about. Yes.
Haein, I thought lacks speed inherently and power, but is very precise and very.
I think she won here by being the most prepared out of a potentially not totally prepared field.
Yes, but I'm missing that Kim Yuna flying across the ice.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
To me, that's what she lacks. Haein Lee, maybe an injury over the summer. I don't know, right? But the jumps seemed straight out of Tammy Gamble's shop, reminiscent of Karen Chen, right? On the triple.
And if you're coming off of like a new status and trying to really cement that place, I might have called this one.
I would have called it. I would have withdrawn if.
Yeah. And it wasn't because she embarrassed herself or anything super bad, but I think, like you were talking about Jun Hwan, like this is a moment for you to really ride some momentum, and they sort of both delivered some underwhelming kind of performances here that I think did more to make Worlds seem like the fluke instead of this weekend.
Yeah, and Haein, they both actually were delivering in the second half of the season last year. So I think Haein Lee just needs more training time to get herself together, right? And so does June, right?
Right.
I think an extra 3 weeks would have really benefited in terms of run-throughs, because I don't think it necessarily helps your confidence to have that bad of an outing, right? But sometimes to be shocked into really turning it up.
Got to go back and really rev this up. And again, maybe this was a different story back in the day when we weren't watching all of the Challenger series, but everyone is watching them. So it's not this, there is no more like little subtle competition to get your feet wet and see how it goes. It's all under the spotlight.
I mean, I definitely had semesters in school where that first exam, you thought you were ready, but you studied, but you didn't kill yourself studying, right?
Yeah.
And then you ate it, right?
Yeah.
Or didn't do as well as you want. And then it was like, game on, you know, like I will pull this grade up no matter what.
Yeah.
And I think Haein and June are both in that position.
Yeah.
You know, they had that exam or that essay that didn't go well, and it is time to get into that next gear. And I think that for both of them, because it's a huge opportunity for both skaters, especially I feel Yelim has had a bunch of opportunities to break through and hasn't quite yet. Cowrie seems to be teetering. Luna seems like she was struggling over the summer, only really doing Sao this show. So I would be putting my foot on the gas if I were Haein Lee to really make a name right now and see what happens. But yeah, I don't know.
And Young Yu was almost shocking. I mean, I know that like she didn't have the season she wanted last year, but I was like, I see. We were at a crossroads and we might have chosen a different path than I would have hoped. Yeah. Just total exhaustion at the end.
Yeah, but I think what we've seen in the Junior Grand Prix is that there's a lot of depth in South Korea, in men's and women's, right? Coming up. Yeah. And listen, Young Yu's days are numbered unless she finds some oomph at the end of the program. And that's just reality. That's not being mean to her. That's just, this is
there's
life.
People in the mix at this point. Yeah.
It's not like in the US where, you know, Amber Glenn can have a bad competition, a good competition. Like, no. They have to really show up and perform.
They have too many solid choices. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know. I thought the junior event, like, Beck is strong in the US. He's been one of those that's hasn't put the triple axel to the quad in yet. I think it's now.
And that short program was rough. I mean, he still ended up in third, but I mean, that was some pretty watered down stuff going on there. Yeah. Yeah,
but he's a gorgeous skater.
Yes.
They are working on stuff. But I think in the US, he is one where it's like, okay, if you can put in the quad when it's ready, right? You don't want it to become a thing, right? Like he's at that point where you can develop this stuff outside of the competition and put it in, or you keep like avoiding it, and there's a problem. So I think, but, you know, Victor Pfeiffer is guiding him, and I think that that's interesting. He was helping Shin. He was quite good at teaching jumps in Colorado to where Tammy didn't want to work with her students and made that known that they were not to work with him. And to me, that probably was insecurity from an outsider. I don't know, but so I'm definitely watching to see what's he going to do as a coach, right? Because we've never seen Tammy succeed in jumps, right? And it seems like maybe that's his strength as a coach. So
yeah, it seems an odd person to disconnect from. Yeah.
Well, she also disconnected from Tom Z, right? But her only assistant that seems to have really survived is Justin, who's right where she wants him, assigning people for things as the high performance director in Colorado.
Right.
right? I think you could see that transparently, like what this is about. So yeah, I would be could you see Tom Z? Like he's doing seminars all over the country ever since Tammy came to the world. You know, like all right. Like I get that these are not the easiest personalities, but he has something to offer in the jumps. Like I think anyone could
Put it
see
that man created like a series of American triple axels that were quite excellent.
Yeah. So why are you not? Right. That's where I question. And that's where I think someone like Justin, if they had some confidence and substance and would be like, okay, let's put a team together. Because I do notice that, yeah, Russia is banned, but I don't see the Team USA capitalizing week to week the way they could be.
What are you doing with
yeah. I see other countries moving ahead, right? When other people, and yes, the US, I think, had success at Worlds in the very top, right? But across the season, not so much. It was not a time of dominance, right? So, I would, yeah. Also, Anna Shcherbakova did a program to Frozen in China.
But do you think she was like confused because she was dressed like the princess from the movie Frozen as opposed to interpreting the Madonna song? When I first saw like the YouTube thumbnail, I was like, oh, she's doing like Disney's Frozen based on how she was packaged. And then when I turned it on and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Madonna's Frozen. Wasn't expecting that.
I was confused.
Yeah, I felt unsafe. She put the jewels right on the ice, and I was like, well, that's making me nervous. The double axel was making me nervous. Like lots was making me nervous.
She did do triple in practice. Apparently she's a huge star in China, has tons of contracts. Good for her. I would like to see some pro competitions where these skaters go one-on-one, right, against one another. Trusova, Shcherbakova. But yeah, the Russians are doing some shows in China right now. Yeah. So I don't know. Shcherbakova, the Frozen was a strange choice.
Again, like I was like, was she confused? They sent her in an Elsa costume.
She had
not that Frozen, the other Frozen. Yeah.
I mean, it was dramatic, but not. I always wanted Oksana Bayul to skate to it. I did have this weird music where
Casa Bonita, or what did she skate to?
Isla Bonita, yes.
That's what it was. Casa Bonita's from South Park. Sorry.
I just had a Carolyn Taylor moment. So every time I go get a massage, and this Georgian guy gives me this massage, right? He plays a CD, and I couldn't figure out what it was because I didn't know all of the songs, like their remixes, and I thought it was Pure Moods. But it wasn't. It's in it. He's playing Enigma the whole time.
So that brings me back to like every pro competition in like the mid-90s. Who do you remember that Paris team? Swelting, Anita Hartshorn, or whatever.
Oh, yes, yeah.
They were. I always remember them doing it. Yeah.
So this song, "The Gravity of Love," I had to look it up. It was really hard to find because it like samples Carmina Burana with like lyrics that must be similar to the translation, and yet it's like a choir doing Carmina. It's a trip. Okay, it's Enigma, okay. Gravity of Love, and like it's patently tacky and awful. But like Carolyn Taylor, I was seeing movement. Okay, and I was seeing like a really bad dance team doing this, where like a guy is dragging the girl, and I'm like seeing movement in my head. And I'm like, and I'm seeing like a bad guy job. So I'm thinking it's either like the French team with the Russian girl or Diana and Gleb. And I'm seeing Benoit choreography. Okay. But you need to just like listen to the song. And okay. I need to you're having a Carolyn Taylor moment where you're like, I see movement. I see movement to the yes. Okay. Like this is yes.
I finished the series. It was delightful. It was delightful. And actually, in an interesting way, when I was watching your interview then subsequently afterwards, it was in talking about like how we were talking about the Rocky program for Fear and Gibson, like it wasn't slapstick, that show. She does not make a joke out of the choreography. She is serious about the choreography when it comes to that point. And I loved that Sandra was really putting her neck out there before she really committed her friends to being involved. That was like, we don't want some ha ha ha, look how dumb skating is kind of joke, which is an understandable fear, because it's very easy, I think, to imagine a show that went that way. But they took it with such seriousness that it kind of worked for me in the end. And is it a spoiler if I say how the last episode goes? The last moments of her on the ice, laying on the ice at the end, made that a series worth it for me.
Okay, in your mind, real or part of her head?
Yeah, either way.
Do you think it's funny either way for me, right?
Agreed.
And yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't want to spoil. Yeah, it was so good. I don't want to like ruin it for everyone.
Well,
So
it might, yeah, actually, but it was very.
It was so
touching.
fantastic. And then Katja really seemed to enjoy her. So I love Sandra becoming a part of, the lesbian community as this lesbian icon now with all of her new friends. This is
I think any
fantastic.
new community she is introduced to, she will become an icon in it. I think we have established that. That is clear. Yeah.
They have these torch songs, and I was sending her some Ani DeFranco this week. I was like, for your tour, I think, Sandra, we love this for you. Okay, it's your new
Don't have to worry about the licensing, right? Wasn't that her whole thing? Yeah, would be perfect. Yeah.
It was perfect for you, Sandra. Ani DeFranco, we love this. So yeah. And I talked to Katja. We talked about cold plunging. She really loves a good banya session. Oh, yes. So she has these great glasses. Oh, she's looking great. Okay. What was your moment of the week?
Oh, okay. So after we did the show last week and we were talking about 1971 Worlds, I went and watched that documentary where it was a lot of the French coverage. So it just took me a second. So you see young Sandra, like with the side ponytail.
Into the camera.
You see Nepela, like just being wonderful. Like,
big a fan of, right? She came all the way from Russia to honor him.
Yeah.
And you see his outside three turn? His back outside three was gorgeous. Okay.
I mean, so much great skating footage I had not seen before, like a lot of those snippets. And of course, you called it. I had remembered intellectually that this happened, but the podium, that podium for the ladies in 71, where Janet Lynn is fourth place and the audience is rioting and they're booing everyone as they come out for their medals. Poor Karen Magnuson and Trixie and the whole gang. And then when Janet just bows from the side of the rink and they explode, I mean, what a moment. And then just a nice tie into the Nepela Trophy or Memorial this weekend. So that was mine, revisiting 1971 World. But if I chose it from the skating this weekend, it would obviously be Zingas and Kolesnik, whom I love. Yeah.
Did we watch also who told Julie Lynn Holmes she could wear like neon chartreuse right after Peggy?
I mean, and not even trying to make it her own. Yeah.
People were upset that I told people to watch Peggy Fleming. I think they were just complaining and not watching. I think they missed the whole point, right?
Agreed.
First of all, to watch Peggy skate, I mean, just to die. But I was rewatching Reflections on Ice, right? There's so many great. Okay. Fritzy Berger. They still hate Sonia, right? Like, I mean, I know that they're not like alive anymore, but I think they still hate her, right?
I'm a Belita fan, and I think she got in Belita's way a lot. Yeah.
Okay, but I was hoping that maybe she would break a leg. Maybe she was.
It was Coolidge. It was Celia Coolidge. Is that right? She was given it because she was the one that did the first layback, and when she was like, "Yeah, they sent me to a contortionist. I hated it," and we were like, "Oh,
yeah." How about when she had to wear silver in the afternoon? That was terrible for her. Okay. Silver in the afternoon when you're going for a gold medal? It's terrible. Okay.
Well, and then when they showed the outdoor arena with all the flags in it, so you knew where not to go because there was no ice there. It's like, this is.
Right. I love how all of the women hate Sonia. Dick
and the dad.
Except for Dick and Frank.
Yeah.
She was a star. Okay. They both appreciated her.
Against it and they got it. Yeah.
Oh, and Frank saying the word leotard. I mean, it is.
That was a confusing pronunciation for me.
He's from Worcester. Okay, that is.
But remember, he was the one that said as kids they didn't get Sonja Henie, so they would like skate around like making fun of her like awkward positions, and that's when
raised hell.
Vincent Owen like just ripped him a new one. Yeah,
but really, it's all about. They say the most awful shit about everyone in the most elegant ways.
Peggy at the front. Yeah.
Peggy is so fantastic in this documentary.
I can't even believe it. I can't even believe it when I'm watching it. It's shocking.
I love it.
Yeah.
I couldn't love her more. Okay. It's just because she feels like our aunt or our like mother of skating, right? Like
absolute wrong thing that you are not supposed to say, but you understand exactly what she's saying and why she's saying it. But you're like, oh, yeah.
But it's not that she says it. There's this moment where she makes a face talking about the 1964 Olympic champion. She shudders. She shudders.
She literally becomes ill at the thought of that.
Yeah.
We were in Boston, remember, when she got that big award? Stookie. In 2014, for some reason, Stookie Dijkstra was winning like this huge award.
There. I don't think she was. Wait, because they usually bring them out for the Olympics. Did they bring them out in 2014? Usually. I hope Peggy was still shuddering. Okay, she was just not a fan of her skating. She didn't like it. Okay, why she thought she could?
Yeah,
she said she knew that she could have a more beautiful body, is what she says in the documentary. Okay,
dreams do come true, Peggy. Dreams do come true. Yeah.
Oh my God, the way that they say even JoJo, they are just like. Even the historian, right, when he's talking about why Trixie was great at the, oh my God, it's so crazy.
I know. I know.
I think those producers like laughing, or were those just like unintended things? These were just like people talking, and they.
Well, when did it air initially? Reflections on Ice.
Midnight, and right before. Because Dorothy says Michelle Kwan and Tara Lipinski don't know what figures are, so I'm guessing it's like 97, 98.
Okay. So it was right in that window where like old school skating comments had started to fade, but not been eradicated completely.
Well, remember how the press treated Monica Lewinsky? I think a lot was allowed back then, right?
Yeah. 100%.
But Ondrej Nepela, it's a moment. Peggy looks great, and they're all in the soft lighting, just glamorous, like,
It's jank. It's like pretzeled around like a chaise. I wasn't following what she was doing. She was like sitting on the most awkward sofa.
We see her sister, but don't explain to us that it's her in the beginning.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated. I want them all. Maybe we could have Tenley, Carol, and her sister do an interview with us, because Carol's sister once skated into her and caused her to miss a season. Yes, like in the Jill Trenery injury. And in her book, which I have, okay, everything is wonderful and roses. And Carol, who's an angel, was not upset with her sister at all. And I want to know if that was the real story. Okay, because let me tell you something. As Michael Shanley said, that Carol is like Tara Lipinski. All right, she's a winner. Okay, you can. Okay,
you can sense that killer instinct in her.
Mm-hmm. So I want to know how Nancy was doing after the skating accident on the ice. If anyone was there and can let us know, we need to know. These are old queens. They are royalty, and we need to know about it.
You're talking about us. We're old queens, and we want to know the story.
This week, I'm going to go watch Debbie at the figures competition.
Oh, nice. Are they televising it at all?
But I will take videos and post.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I will be checking the feed because I'm very intrigued.
I want to have a Lake Placid Adirondacks moment, okay? I want to reclaim because like I have a therapist that had me like reclaim things. I want to reclaim Lake Placid for Linda, right? To be fab, like maybe hot cider, a good spa day at the Mirror Lake Inn, right? Like it needs hiking, reading a book by a fire. Like it needs a moment, okay? And during
On
the
a cold plunge, go into any of the natural water up there. Dear Lord.
absolutely, okay. So I am ready for it. So, but I think my moment of the week. I mean, yes, I love Zingas and Kolesnik. You know, the Rocky program is, you know, entertaining as we try to figure out what's happening. But in a snarky way, when Nika Egadze and Eteri were in the kiss and cry and like maybe thought that they were going to win, I loved that for us. Okay. I really loved us watching and trying to figure like their reaction to try to figure out if they were going to win the Ondrej Nepela. And I really felt like the ghost of Ondrej came through this weekend.
He did us a solid. Yeah. Yeah.
He said, "Did you see my back outside 3 in that 71 documentary?" No. Nika Egadze is not going to win.
Win my
Yes.